I believe God gave me a word for the church today. It is such an important message because some of you are about to fall into things you could have, and I might even say should have seen coming. And I know because it happened to me. And I'm going to tell you all about it, but first let's go to the Garden of Gethsemane. Fitting for us this Holy Thursday, where many years ago Jesus and his disciples were on this day, just hours before he would go to the cross. And now he said something to them that you've likely heard or read many times before. But today, as I read those words, they came alive in my spirit with a fresh download from the Lord. He said to them, "Keep watch with me." So implied there is that Jesus himself was keeping watch, but we read that he went to pray. When he returned, he found them not keeping watch, but sleeping, and said, "Couldn't you keep watch with me for 1 hour?" Then he said it again, "Watch." This time he said, "And pray, so that you will not fall into temptation. The spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak." I think we all get prayer, at least to some degree. But Jesus didn't just say pray. He said, "Watch with me." Then he said, "Watch and pray." So I began to ponder today, what is this watching part all about? And that is when the Lord began to speak to me. To watch doesn't mean just stay awake physically. That's not all that he was saying to do. It means be spiritually alert, be aware, be paying attention. And watch and pray belong together. I think the church has been praying, but something is sometimes missing. We're not always watching. Watching is about living with our eyes open to what's happening around us and in us. When you watch, you begin to recognize where you're weak, vulnerable, where temptation is creeping in, where you're drifting, or when you're tired or anxious or discouraged or bitter, maybe where pride or self-sufficiency are rising within. Maybe for some, where isolation is setting in. Because here's the truth. The enemy doesn't just show up and take us down. He approaches slowly. Watchfulness is what sees him coming. Let me tell you a little bit about my story. There was this one time, I remember today, where I was in an extended time of prayer and God began to speak. Now for me, he speaks sometimes in pictures. This day, I had a picture in my mind or a vision. And I prayed, and as I prayed, I began to see that there was an assignment that the enemy had to harm me, an attack. And I even had a sense of how it was going to work and that it was coming. Now, thinking back on this, as God was downloading this to me today, I realized, yes, I was praying and I saw it, but I don't think I understood what I was really to do about it. Maybe I could say I wasn't fully activated in the watching portion of what Jesus was teaching. So two things began to stand out to me. One, he's teaching something in this moment in Gethsemane that I had missed. Watch means, Jody, what is happening in and around you right now? God, what do I need to know or see or do? That's watching. And then prayer says, God, help me respond and do it. Empower me to stand. Equip me to respond faithfully. Protect me. Bind the work of the enemy. You get it, and so on. There is great significance to this pairing of watch and pray, and I can't understate that, how God is showing me that today. And then secondly, the great significance of why he paired them. He said, because the spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak. I look back today and no doubt my heart was totally passionate and desiring to be pleasing and obedient to Jesus, just like the disciples who said, "I'll die for you," and then fled. Why? Because our flesh is weak. Yes, I was praying, but maybe not watching carefully enough. So now I see, looking back, some fear had actually crept in. Exhaustion in my life was mounting. Circumstances were weighing me down. I was becoming more and more vulnerable, and yet I was praying. I was one with the disciples in heart and sadly in flesh. But I don't say this to cut myself down. I'm sharing it to help you and share what God is teaching me that I believe is to awaken and equip His church, you and I today. Jesus is the best teacher ever. He taught us we need both, watch and pray. So my friends, let me just say this. You can love Jesus, you can pray, but if you're not watching, you won't see it coming. And on the flip side, if you're seeing it and not really sure how to pray and do something about it, you won't be standing in the anointing and the power to stand. A word today for the church from Jesus himself on the day of Holy Thursday from the Garden of Gethsemane. Watch and pray. Watchfulness sees the danger, and prayer brings the power to overcome. Now, friends, we need both, but I want to make this really practical for you today. So I've prepared a watchfulness checklist. I'm going to put a copy of it in the caption of this video so you can save it and use it in your own personal prayer time. And now I'm not going to share the full list, but just to give you an idea of what is on it, it's questions like, where am I most vulnerable right now? Where are my temptation triggers? What patterns in my life tend to lead me to sin? Or am I noticing there's spiritual drift in my life, or busyness or fatigue? Those kinds of questions. Review the checklist and then meet every area with prayer and practical obedience. In the garden, the disciples weren't just tired, they were unprepared. Their eyes were closed when they needed to be open. In 2026, I believe the church is in a moment where we cannot afford to be spiritually asleep any longer. Jesus is saying to his followers, keep watch with me. Watch and pray so that you will not fall. The ones who stand are not the ones who just love him. They're the ones who stay awake with him. I pray you allow this to be more than just a word or a warning or a video message that you watch today, but let it lead you to a moment with God. Pause, pray, let him show you where you are vulnerable, what needs to change, maybe where you have even failed to watch, and then pray and believe and overcome. If this encouraged you or challenged you, like, share, pass it on, because perhaps someone else needs it too. God bless.